Okay, so I'm doing a transmission swap on this Mazda Millenia. Got another one sitting out on the street that I just pulled that transmission out of with a blown motor. This one's got a blown transmission, a good motor. So anyway, on both of these, I couldn't get the stupid CV axle out of this side with it in the car, and the reason for that is, when you look underneath of there, I can't even walk, I gotta clean this place up. Is there's a little piece of transmission stuff that's in the way, so you can't get in underneath of there with a pry bar. Same thing on the top, you can't go over the top because there's transmission stuff in the way. Now what about that opening from behind? Well, you can't get to that either because the rack and pinion's in the way. So what I made is this little tool. This is an old breaker bar that I broke the end off of, and so, or I think I got it from somebody else that broke it. Anyway, I had this handle sticking around, and then I also had a shackle thing from some leaf springs. I did a lift kit on the Isuzu Rodeo, and so I just cut a little piece of that off because it's good thick steel. I had to taper it down just a little bit on the grinder so it gets in there. This is a formidable weapon, isn't it? Like a hatchet. So anyway, the way that this works is you stick it down, you know, from the side. You get it in there behind your CV axle, you tap it in with a hammer or whatever, and that can work. But you just basically get it in there and you give it a good old whack. And of course, if you're doing it with one hand, it's not going to work when you're holding the camera, but let's try this again. It might take a couple goes, I guess. I don't know if this is even going to go. The important thing is I stuck it down in here because this is what I'm stuck on this job, and sure enough, it popped it free. It's loose now, so I can proceed. I did it kind of in the middle because I thought, you know, some of them will be right-handed, some will be left-handed, and that way I'll be able to get either one with the same tool. You see, I put a little bit of an angle in it for delivery. Anyway, I'm kind of excited about it. Got me through this pinch, and I don't know how long I spent on that with pry bars, screwdrivers, and chisels, hammers, everything. Nothing was getting it out. So, and this one never came out at all. And on the other side of the car, I couldn't get the CV axle out of here because they're rusted. You can torch it, get it real good and hot and glowing in here with the oxyacetylene torch. Trouble with doing that though is that it burns up the seals in the wheel bearing, and you have to replace a wheel bearing too. So tried PB Blaster, tried a few other products, tried to get it to come unrusted. No luck, it's stuck. So I'm going to pop it out of there. I've got it undone at the base, and got it spaced with a rubber mallet, but basically I'm just going to pull the axle back and clear the transmission out of there. I guess it doesn't have to come out of here if I can pull that out of the way. If I have to, I'll undo the rest of it and set it aside, but tell you what, that is rusted. The other one on the other cars that was the donor car, dude, I hit that with the hammer so hard that it just mushroomed it out to where you couldn't even get a nut back on it. I mean, it was just way rusted in there. So anyway, kind of fun thought. Anyway, what I did is I undid everything else and pulled this whole spindle out and just hung the axle in there the way it is. This CV axle is good, so I'm not going to mess with it. We don't need to change it. If I did need to change this axle, the steps to take, there's a few things you could do. You could replace just a boot by getting it to this point and then knocking the end of this off and then stringing a new boot on and putting it back together. Or you can go to the wrecking yard and get a new spindle. Or the other option you can do is to heat it up with a torch and then just replace the wheel bearing with it. At this point, what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you guys, I tried using a hub spindle puller, and that puts pressure directly on the CV axle to push it through. But as you can see, it just started filing it down and just making a mess. So once that didn't come out, that's when I pulled the spindle. To pull the spindle, you can just pull out the strut brace up here and then knock this one out of the steering knuckle there, and of course the tie rod, and then the lower one was already undone. That's usually the way I pull the axles on these, is I just undo the lower ball joint. But anyway, Just figured I'd show you. What a pain. Oh, I was going to show you something else that was kind of cool. Has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but look at that. Is that badass or what? Got a new belt buckle. It's a Viking ship. Thought that was kind of fun.